is Denise Everhart, and I'm the Division Disaster Executive for the Pacific Division. Joining me, I have Al Mallamo. Al Mallamo is my volunteer partner. It is such a privilege for me to have Al as my volunteer partner. He's been with the Red Cross since 2005. I looked up your volunteer connection profile, Al. He's been with the Red Cross since 2005. He's been a DRO director, an NRMT member, which is the National Response Management Team. He really brings the heart to our operation, and he helps keep me on the straight and narrow, which is a full-time job. And so I'm really happy to welcome Al. We'll hear from him in just a minute. I also want to take a quick moment to thank Ian and Chris and Luke, who are all helping us put on our first ever live event. If I sound a little nervous, it's because there's an end button that if I hit, I cancel the whole thing. So I'm hands off on the computer. This is the first time we've ever done one of these, but the Pacific Division spans 10 regions across 8 time zones. So it's everywhere from Saipan all the way to Montana. 8 time zones, bigger than any other division, more diverse than any other division, and I personally think we're way better than any other division. So thank you and for joining, and we've recorded if you weren't able to join. Hopefully you'll be able to watch and somebody asked the question that you had. We're going to talk for just a little bit, and then we're going to turn it over. You can write questions in the question box. It should be on the right part of your screen. We'll get as many questions answered as we can. And so start stacking them up now. Chris Boyle's going to run the questions and answers, and we'll see where we end up. I wanted to start off by talking about DCS and where we are in the COVID environment. So the COVID, we first really came across this as people were being evacuated from China, the Wuhan province, were being evacuated from China by the United States Embassy to the West Coast. And we were part of that response from the very beginning. We met a plane in Anchorage. We called the Anchorage folks. They went out and they went shopping and they got stuff and they were good to go. And we brought people things that they desperately needed, right? They'd been on a plane, they just left their homes. We brought them everything from diapers for their kids to pack and plays to cards to play. And we continued that mission while more and more people came over, and then came the cruise ships. And once again, the American Red Cross was there and the Pacific Division was there. We tried to help people with those little bit of essentials. We tried to help people move to their next location, and we supported our partners as they were trying to figure out this new world that we ended up in. And then we started to see the disease really in Washington and California, and then in Oregon, and you could slowly watch it spread across the United States, and the American Red Cross kept adapting. So we built a matrix, and we decided, you know, what was going to happen if there was a public health emergency. And you know, it was really funny because the first few calls that I was on with my colleagues across the country, we were really the first to experience most of this. And so I'd be on a call and Brad Kaiserman, our vice president, or Trevor Riggin, our senior vice president, would say something like, well, you know, we know more places are going to turn yellow, but nobody's really going to turn orange. And I'm texting Brad saying, so King, Pierce, and Snohomish counties in Washington just told everybody to stay at home. They were like, okay, we're going orange. You know, it was a public health emergency. And then it was these stay-at-home orders. The entire country has kind of followed. Unfortunately, I think we all had hoped that we would be able to contain this. And we weren't. And so the desire was to flatten the curve. So at a certain point in time, enough places in the country had gone to stay at home orders that we as the Red Cross said, everything is red, no matter whether your governor has declared a stay at home order or not. And what does that mean for us? Those were the tough questions that our colleagues up at national headquarters, working with all of us out in the divisions, were trying to answer. What does preparedness look like? What does our response to our clients look like? What does a DAC call look like? What does a sheltering look like? But the issue that kept rising to the top was, how do we take care of our workforce and still help people? So right now we're in a place where everything is still red, and we're not going to change that right away. As more and more states are opening up, that doesn't mean that we're going to back off. Nothing has changed with the virus. We still don't have a vaccine. We still don't have a good treatment for it. The people that are most vulnerable to COVID are also the people that are often in our shelters. The socially vulnerable population are also our clients. So we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves, because that's the thing. We don't want to give anybody this disease. We don't want to get this disease from anybody. So that is the overriding mission that rises to the top of this. So I think the most important thing is that we are not changing the mission. We're changing how we do the mission. And that's really important for all of us to keep in mind. We are still out there. We're helping in food banks, which we've never really done before, but we just came to an agreement with food banks in California. There's a bunch of positions. You're about to hear from your workforce engagement, but we're going to help. We're going to be part of that community response. We've been doing it across our division already, and that is going to expand. We're going on DAC calls. We might not be there in person, but we're still helping people. We're helping people who've lost everything move on to their next step. Multifamily fires. We've put numerous people in hotels as a result of this. Times when we would normally just open a shelter, but we've given them hotel rooms and we've extended that. That's how we help our clients, and we keep our distance. And we follow the rules to keep ourselves safe. We all know that wildfire season's coming. We all know that that is a huge concern, and we are talking to our partners and we're planning on it. I'm not even going to go into that in any detail because I know it's coming up in questions. But we're also adapting in other ways. We're helping our biomed partners in ways that we've never done before. I have heard from numerous Red Cross volunteers who've done a temperature screening shift at a blood drive. We're giving blood. I have seen on Facebook and other social media more and more Red Crossers who are really stepping forward and saying, this is how I can help right now. And we're adapting our preparedness programs. We're still reaching out to kids and to families to make sure that they are prepared for the next disaster. And I think that's really important. The mission has not changed. It's just how we do the mission. I'm going to turn it over to Al and let Al give his heart and his words of wisdom. Al is just an incredible volunteer. And Al, you're up. And you're muted.
Yep, we're sending Al over now, and we're going to get him off of mute. Al, I think you may be the one to take yourself off mute, sir.
This is new for all of us.
How did I do?
There you go. Perfect.
It helps when you click the button that says unmute, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time to listen to Denise. And take the time to ask some pertinent questions that are meaningful to you, not just necessarily Red Cross and what we do and how we do it. You know, as Brad Kaiserman's been saying, our mission in any way, shape, or form has not changed. It remains the same. It's just how we're going to go about doing it is different. And some of you, I'm sure, have already been on a virtual assignment one way or another, casework, management, leadership of some sort, etc. And it is challenging. But I want to share a couple of things that at least I've experienced, and some things that moving forward that we need to think about in honing some of our skills, some of the newer skills that we need to champion as we go down continue on this road of COVID-19. During one of the hurricanes, doesn't matter what the name of it was, we were doing virtual casework across the country, and we were doing it via hubs. And the hubs were assignments of maybe 30 to 40 caseworkers that would make phone calls directly to the clients. It was one of the first times we were doing that. And I was asked to lead the Western hub, and that was the Alaska, the West Coast, basically. And I forget how many people I had, but what was interesting about it was trying to lead and manage a team that I could not physically touch. Yes, back then we did not really have the tools of looking at one another on the screen, so everything was done over the phone. And that brought lots of questions to my mind. And how do I truly lead and manage people by just the word of mouth, by my articulate words or expressions, etc., with a smile in my voice, as we say in business. Beyond that, I had so many questions of how do I get a pulse of understanding how those people are feeling? How is this job running for them? Other than asking the question, how are you doing? I mean, we all answer the same way. When someone asks you how you doing, we very quickly say, oh, I'm okay, or I'm fine, or I'm moving on, whatever the case may be. Very seldom do we really say, hey, I'm messed up, or I'm tired, or whatever, until we get to that near breaking point. So some of those things that we need to hone our skills with is truly actively listening to one another, okay? And in that, when you're truly listening, you are being kind, okay? I know that in managing or leading a team, it's a whole lot easier to rely somewhat on your physicalness to express a thought or an idea. That has been removed virtually. A little bit, we have a little bit of it now that we have a screen to look at one another, but there's lots of distractions. Like look at my screen, look behind me, there's all sorts of books and things on the walls, and you get distracted by looking at that. The same thing as if you are deployed on a DR virtually, you're now working at home. You have all those distractions that you would have in the comfort of your own home, the distractions of regular life, paying the bills, the kids are running amok, the dogs are running in and out of the house, etc. The phone is ringing, the milkman or the mailman, see the phone is ringing, there you go, can't fix those. And all those distractions take place, and we still have to maintain our prowess and our leadership as a virtual leader. So those are big challenges and an opportunity for us to learn. So keep that in mind if you get the opportunity to be in an exercise, a virtual exercise. You're not only working on the process of Red Cross business, the logistics, the mass care, all those functions that we would normally do almost with this group, almost without even thinking about it. We know what to do is dealing with our partners, etc. Those are all challenging new points. So as Denise always says at DRs, etc., we need to learn how to be kind. And I'm sorry about the phone, folks, but nothing I can do here. All of a sudden, the phone hasn't rung all day, and now it rings 25 times.
Hey, Al, I promise it's not me.
Yeah, it's not Denise calling me. So that, as Denise always says, be kind to one another, and these times will pressurize us even more so than we usually do. Yes, we will always work on getting to yes. Working through and fulfilling our mission with our clients, and that much more depth with our partners, because we're asking a whole lot more of them. So enough said right this moment, and I'll pass it back to Denise.
You don't even have to go to me, Ian. We're just going to keep it on Al and watch him be distracted by his phone. But one of the things that our national headquarters asked us to cover is we're having this is part of what we're calling a safety stand down. What does that mean, right? What it means is we can't let our guard down. I think it should have been a safety, don't let your guard down. But what it means for us is this is the time where it's gone on long enough, and we're starting to see states open up, and we've got all of these other things going on, and we can let down our guard. And we don't want anybody to let down their guard. We really want to take care of our people. So Brad asked us all, and Ian, you can put Al back up. Brad asked us all to cover the CDC of safety, and Al's going to give us the first C. Al?
Well, the CDC, you know, if you're old enough, maybe a lot of you are, CDC for me used to stand for Civil Defense Commission or Corps, which was, you know, the ones that taught us how to put our heads between our knees and say goodbye because the atomic bomb was being dropped. And so anyway, CDC stands, as we know, is another acronym that we're going to throw out there, which stands for CDC, which is cover, distance, and clean. And cover means, you know, putting a mask on your face, but a couple of steps before that. And in essence, what we talk about is that you need to wash your hands before you even handle your mask, but you don't want to be putting your hands on the face or the inside of the mask. Simply, you want to take, and I wish I had a mask in front of me, which I don't, but you would take it by the drawstrings, whether you're tying it behind your head or putting it over your ears, but you grab it by, Denise is showing it to you there, grab it by the strings and put them over your ears, and then making sure that you have a good tight seal over the top of your nose and covering them below your chin, and no gaps on the sides of your face. Very good, Denise. Good model. Good modeling there. So the D and the distance, Denise wanted to talk about that.
So distance, we're gonna keep 6 foot distance between us and other people. That distancing is what will really protect you. I really think a good way to think about it is, if you think about it, it's lightsaber distance. So keep your lightsaber distance from everybody and don't get too close. That's the best way to protect yourself. I love my lightsaber. Back to Al for the last C.
And clean, and I've heard many different ways, but when you're washing your hands, you know, I've heard that you're supposed to wash it for 20 seconds. What does that mean? Oh, what's an example? Sing happy birthday twice. I've heard row your boat X amount of times, and whatever song or time, but you know, don't just wet your hands and put some soap on it and wipe them. Really wash them between the tops and the bottoms of your hands, in between your fingers, below your fingernails, if you can get below those. All those points that you need to wash completely. Okay, so take the time, wash deeply, and wash often. The other thing is cleaning the surfaces. Okay, yeah, where I am, I've been sequestered in my own home for a while, and there's no one else here. I live alone, so I don't have to worry about the surfaces being touched because I'm the only one touching them. But those that have multiple folks in your homes, etc., using the computers at different, so think about the surfaces that are touched a lot. That being computer keyboards, that being your phone, and the counter surfaces, obviously desktops, those sort of things. Make sure you keep those clean and sanitized the best, and disinfected the best that you can. So I think that's about what I've got. Denise or Ian?
There you go. You know, basically at the end of the day, the point of this is, don't let your guard down. Be safe. We care about you. We care about our Red Cross family. We care about our clients. And the best thing we can do is CDC, is to really, you know, make sure that we're not going to be part of the problem. Do everything possible to keep yourself and those around you safe. I'll tell you the funny thing for me is we went and we checked my mom out of her nursing home, and she's home with my dad. And I just went down there the other day to put in the notice to say that she's not going to come back. She's going to stay at home. We got some home health care. And after signing the paper, I came out of the nursing home and I had that whole, oh my gosh, it's a nursing home. I'm super paranoid. And I had brought hand sanitizer and wet wipes. I knew I was prepared when I got in my car, and I got in my car and I pulled on the seatbelt just like I always thought. And then I went for the wet wipes and I was like, oh no, I got to do the seatbelt too. Just be really careful and be really conscious of what you're touching and where you're going. We'll get through this. We all will get through this, and we'll get through this together. And as Red Crossers, we're going to help a lot of people while this is going on. So let's go to the questions. The first question that I see is a question on sheltering, how to track, triage counts, etc. And will the Red Cross be at any hotels, etc.? What Chris is doing is he's taking all the questions and he's trying to lump them so that we can get through all of the questions. So the question about sheltering, here is our plan. So for multifamily fires, for smaller disaster relief operations, our first line, the thing that we want to do first of all is we want to put people in hotels. If we can arrange for hotel stays for people while we work and work with our partners and everyone else to get them out, or if it's a multifamily fire, the apartment complex, to get them back into that apartment complex, hotels are our best option. We will be involved with the hotels. We will do some screening of our clients. We will do casework with our clients. We will drop food off at people's doors. Every time we do one of these, we learn a little bit more. We've been watching the tornadoes very closely across the country, as has national headquarters. If we get into a hiccup, we can adjust course. It goes back to that adaptability. So hotels are the way. We're not putting them in the national sheltering system, which is, for those of you who don't know how we normally do our midnight counts, we're doing a separate process for that. There's a whole huge, like, another hour-long phone call where I could explain to you why. Let's just leave it at, we found another way to do this, and we are keeping track of them. We're pulling that information in so that we can look at trends and see what's going on, just like we would any other sheltering operation. So we are doing that. We're working with our partners. We're working with our partners to identify hotels. We're working with our partners to basically triage people, find out who has a temperature, who needs to be in isolation, do we need to do something different? And that will grow for wildfires. So as we look at wildfires, we can look at, over on the West Coast, we have humongous evacuations. And they're always Friday around 9 p.m., I think, all the way till 3 a.m. And so we will do what we can to get people in hotels, but we're working really hard. We've got a few groups that are studying kind of our proposed responses. We're talking to, at the national, at the regional, and at the local level, to our government partners with HHS and FEMA to really try and say, what do we do about this? We know at some point in time, be it for a hurricane, a wildfire, or some other disaster that I haven't thought of yet, we'll open a shelter. And what we have to do is we have to really take care of our workforce. We have to really take care of our clients. And it's not going to be the Red Cross alone. It will take partners to get this done. It will probably take a staging area where we talk to people, and if we've got some hotel rooms, we will put the most vulnerable in the hotel rooms first. We'll do temperature screenings like we're doing of our staff and our DAC clients. We'll be doing temperature screenings, and then we'll have a shelter and an isolation wing. What that looks like is going to depend jurisdiction by jurisdiction. Public health is going to be part of this process. But we're all going to figure it out together. We are amazingly adaptable and really, really good at putting the clients first, and that's our way forward. So, Al, do you got anything to add to that one?
Nope, you done good.
I've done good. Somebody asked me to talk about our current missions, things that we're doing out in the field right now. We have a bunch of different missions that we're doing. It's really kind of exciting. Everything from working with the Salvation Army on the Hawaiian Islands to working with the Los Angeles School District. We're working with food banks across California, Oregon, and Washington. I don't know if we have any Alaska. If we do, that's my bad. I think we do have a feeding mission up in Alaska. But what we're doing, Idaho and Montana, we've got missions going on in almost all of our states, in all of our regions. And part of what we're doing is we're identifying the community need. We're involved on a community level in ways that we haven't always been involved. So it's everything from packing food boxes to putting food in people's trunks. We're offering mental health support to some nursing homes. The range is wide, and the Pacific Division has led the way in most of this. I have yet to put a mission up to Brad that he has refused. I can't say that of everybody else. And soon what is coming next is going to be condolence care. We're going to have a website where people who've lost somebody to COVID can register. We'll have resources for them. We can have some one-on-one conversations with them. We can do some psychological first aid for the community. More and more is going to come out on that, but I really think we're going to make a huge impact on people who have suffered a terrible loss as a result of this disease. Let me see, question, what science are we using to make decisions? Science! So the science that we're using to make decisions, we're really leaning on the Centers for Disease Control, who have the lead for the United States, and our partners at HHS to lead the way. We're staying out of the politics like we always do, and we're really trying to use science and scientific recommendations. We also have a council up at our national headquarters that includes our nurse. It includes, you know, some of our business operations, but we've got a group that's really looking at this, and they're looking at this deliberately. They're looking at this across the entire American Red Cross universe, from SAF to biomed to disaster cycle services, and they're really trying to they're doing just an amazing job at making thoughtful, fact-based decisions. And in some ways, you know, we might remain closed. We're never closed, but our offices may remain closed. We may just be open for certain services. We may be doing remote DAT. We might be doing something different on sheltering, even in states that entirely open up. And we might not be in alignment with our state government. But once again, it comes back to that keeping our people safe. Al, you got anything on that?
No, but everything that I have seen that comes from national really has the basis of being data driven. It is numbers. We're looking at the numbers of how many new cases. What's that look like in a 24-hour cycle versus the last 5 days? So most of the decisions that are driven truly are, like we should be in, like we do in a DR, is a data-driven decision-making process with strong partners with HHS and any of our local health services, whether it's city, county, or state. Working closely with them, seeing if they're in agreement with what we're seeing and what we're thinking. So it's a very, very good work has really been taking place. So thank you all.
Okay, so questions about volunteering. How are we handling volunteer attrition? Do virtual deployments have set hours? It's a really good point. I've just been notified that there's a clicking noise. I'm not going to try and switch cameras or do anything about it right now because I'll break this whole system, I'm sure of it. So I apologize for any kind of clicking noise. Just think of it as music in the background. But the volunteering, how are we handling volunteer attrition? You know, it's been really interesting. We've done a bunch of surveys and we have some level of volunteers who need to stay home. They might need to stay home for their own health. They might need to stay home because of somebody else's health. They might need to stay home because their kids aren't in school or some other reason. And they may not be able to volunteer. I haven't heard of volunteer attrition. I've heard of people choosing to keep themselves safe, which will keep everybody else safe. We want all of our volunteers to continue to be able to volunteer with the Red Cross. We want them to believe in our mission and to support what we're doing. We're trying to offer some virtual responding opportunities for people who can't go out. More often than not, we're actually finding people who are able to go out on a DAT call when they've never been able to go out before because they can do it from their home. So I don't know that we're seeing a lot of volunteer attrition. I do want to talk about virtual hours because I'm probably one of the worst offenders and I've had to develop some discipline around it. So there's a thing called, they call it Zoom fatigue. For us, it could be Teams fatigue. I have spent more time looking at people than I normally do. Normally I have 2 or 3 video calls maybe a day. And that would be a really busy day. I'd have 50 other phone calls and be on the email all the time and working and talking, but the level of FaceTime has actually gone up, because the only time that I have felt this way have been when I've deployed and I'm face to face with people every single day, all day. So we have to be careful about that. We have to be careful about having meetings for the sake of making everybody feel not alone, and we're actually exhausting them because we're having too many meetings. We have to be very careful about our hours. It's easy when you're home to constantly pick up the computer, to have a call, to get on a Zoom, to answer email. We're not leaving a computer at the office. We don't have as defined hours. So my recommendation is that we will set, I know we will on DROs, but even every day, we should try and set hours. We should try and frame that workload. My other recommendation is also that we limit, and this is just my advice to you, but I think it's good advice and it's sound advice. Limit your exposure to the media, to the COVID news. We have to practice self-care. If we don't do it, nobody else will. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be any good at taking care of other people. So my advice to you is set office hours, go to the office hours. If somebody wants to talk to you after office hours, politely, remember, be kind, but politely say, can this wait till tomorrow? Is this urgent? And take care of yourself. Watch a goofy movie. Have some fun. Some friends and I got on Zoom the other night. It wasn't Zoom, it was something else. I don't know what it was, but we got on some format kind of like this, and we played the newlywed game, right? We looked up the questions online. We sent everybody the questions beforehand, and it was 3 couples, and it was a lot of fun, and we all felt more connected. You gotta self-care. Take care of yourself, take care of your families. That's your #1 priority, and then us. Al, anything to add to volunteering and volunteer attrition?
Well, just one thing, there are some of us that are considered to be control freaks who like to control everything. This is one of those moments in your life that you can't control a lot of things that you normally would like to control. So it's good, as what Denise just said, about staying away from the news if you can, but think about making a list for yourself of the things that you can control, and one of them is to be positive. For me, my mantra always has been and will remain to be is it's not the situation I'm in, it's my response to it. How I respond to it, how I react to it. And that's what we can do in our home front as we take care of our loved ones and stay healthy. In reality, if you think about it, as a volunteer or as an employee of Red Cross, our main job right now is to stay healthy. If you're not healthy, get healthier. You have that opportunity. I mean, we have that opportunity now that we're home. You can work out. You can do those things that recreate you on a daily basis. For those of you that have been on a DR with me, you hear me harp about find the way that you can recreate yourself for the next day. Our business is not an easy business to do, but you have to find a way to recreate yourself so the next day you're brand new. And whatever that is, for some it's walk, it's run, it's read, it's sleep, it's eat, it's whatever is on that list, do them as often as you can, but you got to take care of yourself first. As you say, as you've heard me say, me first, you second, with love. I got to take care of me or I can take care of you.
With love.
With love.
With love, always with love. But yeah, I can't add anything to what Al just said. So our next question is, can you talk about PPE? What equipment should I wear? Who will provide it? So I'm going to take a step back and say, and I'm all nervous now because Diane St. Dennis is on the call and she's going to get all mad at me because I'm going to say something wrong. She's our Pacific Division Health Advisor. But I'm going to say that on the exchange, if you go to the exchange every single day, the top story is the COVID topic hub. If you click on that, you can read, you can see what's going on everywhere. You can see what Biomed's doing, you can see what everybody's doing, but there's a link to the DCS toolkit. In there, and actually in that topic hub, our guidelines for wearing masks. And those are the important guidelines to follow. It talks about PPE. So if you remember, cover. So the recommendation is that this will work for most of our interactions. Why? Because we're going to keep a distance. If you keep a distance, then this protects people from anything you might be carrying. We can give our clients a mask if we do have to go on scene and talk to them face to face. And we do have masks available to regions for that. We do have other supplies, hand sanitizer, cleanser. There are a lot of supplies that we have stored at the regions for a potential disaster relief operation and a shelter. And then we have an extra level of protection for people who are going to have regular one-on-one face-to-face contact. We have disposable thermometers to take temperatures. We really have, there's a whole set of guidelines to follow when you go out, and they're available for anybody to see on that exchange. So remember, cover, distance, clean. The next question is, how do we handle clients who refuse to go into isolation at a shelter? I'll be honest with you. Let's think about it this way. If a client came up to a shelter with a bottle of whiskey and refused to put it down, what would we do? We would gently tell them that they cannot come into our shelter with their bottle of whiskey. We have a sign that says that at all of our shelters. I know but it's the example that works the best. If somebody comes up and they say, I won't go to isolation, I'm not going to leave, then first of all, we will let them in our shelter. If they refuse to go to isolation, we will escort them out of our shelter. We will let our health partners know that this person won't go to isolation in the shelter, and so we're asking them to leave the shelter. We will offer them other services to help them. But once again, we have to look at the larger whole, and we have to protect ourselves and our clients. And if one person is putting ourselves and our clients at risk, then we have to remove that risk. We'll do it with love, as Al says, but we will firmly remove that risk. There are rules, and we do ask our people to follow them. So the next question that I see is, how do we work with public health? They're taxed too. Public health is taxed in a way that they've never been taxed before. And you're right. And that's a really great question. That was one of the first things that all of our regions brought up as we got into this environment. Public health's not going to be able to help us. What are we going to do? When we thought it was just isolated to the West Coast, we were like, oh, well, we'll make sure they do it. As this has grown, public health has gotten more and more taxed. But the thing to keep in mind, and the conversations that we've had at a national level, at a state level, and the conversations that are happening at a county level are, we're too busy, we're too busy, we're too busy. You're opening a congregate shelter, we'll find a way to help you. Our shelters really are kind of, we've got socially vulnerable population. If we have to open a shelter, we're looking at socially vulnerable population congregating. Those are two things that are a priority for everybody right now. You're going to see a level of assistance coming county to county, state coming in, FEMA deploying teams like they've never deployed to help us with this. It is, we're all working on the plans right now coming into wildfire and hurricane season, and we're all crystal clear aware of the concern around congregate sheltering, and we can't do it alone. We've never done it alone, and we're going to need our partners more than we've ever needed our partners before, and that includes looking outside of the box. That includes talking to the Medical Reserve Corps and having them come into our shelters. That includes talking to Team Rubicon and anybody else who really has some expertise and can help us. That's going to be part of our overall plan, is to ask for help early and often. Oftentimes when we deal with disasters, we come from a place of, I got it, we're the Red Cross, we can do it, we've got it. This region, we've got it. This division, we've got it. I do it all the time. I don't need any help from anybody else, I got it. At this point in time, we're going to ask for help. If we have to open a congregate facility, we cannot do it alone. FEMA is already established in all of the states right now. They have forward advanced teams, and they've set up medical facilities. Those medical facilities are for hospital overflow, but we started to have the conversation that they're also really good for congregate sheltering. They're set up to take a lot of people and put them in beds. So we're working on it kind of nonstop. We know they're taxed. That's part of the plan. That mutual aid support is going to be huge, and our partner support is going to be huge. Oh, I thought that was the end of the questions. I had to scroll down to see more questions. How do I find out about opportunities in my area, blood drives, missions in my region, etc.? How do I help? Ha! I hope you live in California, especially around one of those places we're about to ask for help. Your workforce engagement people should be reaching out with opportunities. Your regional websites are another good place to look. We're going to be posting some jobs in Volunteer Connection. My advice would be to reach out to your region, whether it's your DPM who you've got a great relationship with, or your RDO. Reach out to them and see what opportunities are opening up with condolence care, with the feeding mission in California, with regular DAT calls, with kind of disaster season for our coast coming up. There are opportunities. Those are best managed at a region level. So I would say to reach out to your region. And I'm really sure that your regions will be reaching out to you soon to let you know about some new opportunities. So please explain why we're being careful to help our partners in COVID, but not being the only partner ready to respond to our standard disasters. Okay. We're being careful to help our partners in COVID. I think I understand this question. I might not have it exactly right, but what I've got right now for that question is that we're being careful what missions we take on. We have to maintain the ability to respond to DAT, to respond to disasters. So we're not overcommitting to anything. So we're being very careful in the area that we step forward to offer assistance. We want to be a good community partner, and we want to help people in our communities, but we can't be the only one, because if we get a disaster, we leave. We have to focus on the disaster. So we're making sure that we're very careful in how we're accepting some of these missions and some of these requests and how we're getting involved. And it's really a balance. I can tell you that I have talked to partners in almost all of our states about this balance, and they understand. They want us to be able to respond to a disaster. The other thing that we're looking at is, we have very real fears about how much of our workforce is going to be able to respond. We have very real fears about keeping our workforce safe. We have very real fears about wearing out our workforce and then running into a disaster season. So we're trying to balance all of those things as we accept these missions. I'm not sure but not being the only partner ready to respond to our standard disasters, I'm not sure what that part of the question means. I might be missing something, but I can tell you that just like we're talking to our partners about how we have to be careful about taking on some of these community missions and we can't be the only one, we're also talking to our partners and saying, look, we normally do the sheltering, but we can't be the only one. It's going to have to be a team effort. And we're working closely with all of them on that. Al, anything that I missed on that?
Nope, you covered it well.
Will the Red Cross be involved in COVID testing? That is not our area of expertise. And to my knowledge, we will not. I haven't heard anything other than that. And so I'm just going to leave that one there. What trends are we seeing? Are disasters, DAT calls increasing? It's really interesting. So from what I've been able to see at a cursory glance of our division is that our DAT calls seem to be going down. And I could pretend to know why. It's because everybody's home and so you can't leave the stove unattended. That might be part of it. But our multifamily fires seem to be going up. That might just be a perception because we're all a little bit more involved in the multifamily fires. But our overall fire responses are going down. Pretty much across the board, all of our regions have seen a dip compared to last year. Several questions about deployments for people over 65. Can we still deploy? Any age restrictions? To my knowledge, we don't have any age restrictions. We've had a conversation about taking care of yourself and making sure that you're healthy to respond. We do have screening questions, but I'm not sure. And look, I don't know everything. I've read it all numerous times. I don't think we have a restriction over 65. This is the time for my team to text me and say you're wrong if I'm wrong. I don't think we have a restriction. We do have health screening questions and hardship codes in place. Al?
Yep, no, that's what I understand also, because I'm of that category.
I was never going to say that. Back to sheltering. Many sites have just one restroom. How do we allow for isolation? How do we provide spaces for briefings and town hall meetings in shelters? So in the Pacific Division, we've already been through some of this kinda. So during the campfire, we had a huge norovirus infection kind of go through a lot of our shelters. And so public health helped us set up isolation wings. So separate tents where people went to. The state brought in double the number of restrooms. They brought in hand washing stations. They brought in more showers. They brought in laundry facilities. Once again, it's going to be a team effort to get those resources, but there are guidelines. Public health has put out guidelines, and we're using those as our base for how many toilets per people in an isolation environment, how many toilets for people in a pandemic environment. All of that is already documented. So it goes back to that science and facts. We're looking, our partners in public health have been building out isolation from disease for a long time, and they have a lot of documentation. So we're taking that as our base for how we're going to do our sheltering. And what that means is a lot more resources than we've ever had before. What that means are hotel rooms where we can move the most vulnerable there to get them isolated and less at risk. And as far as briefings and town hall meetings, cover distance cough. We won't have too many of them. A lot of our communication will be in writing, and when we do have to have some kind of meeting, we will do it at a social distancing with people with masks. We will take care of ourselves and we will take care of our clients. Anything else on that one, Al?
No, good.
Okay. So the next one is, can you address our role in supporting the homeless during COVID? We have been in conversations with Housing and Urban Development, who has been supporting all of the states, who have been supporting all the cities and counties with homeless sheltering and the homeless being particularly vulnerable to this disease. Most of our states have come up with some solutions for the homeless, and the homeless agencies are working closely with them. We have offered some sheltering subject matter expertise and some of our other expertise to those organizations that have stepped up. We don't have a big ask from our states around the homeless initiative. They already have agencies that have primary responsibility for that, and they've been working plans wherever we can. We have been helping out. We've given some cots and some blankets, and like I said, some training. That's really our role right now as far as the homeless.
Denise, I received a text message asking about, have we been specifically asked to take over for the homeless?
We have not. We have not been asked to take over anywhere. There were some initial requests for cots and blankets and some supplies, and we had those conversations. More often than not, they ended up not using our supplies. But the states have really stood up a huge effort around the homeless, and we have not been asked to help with that. So how are we handling virtual training? We're doing a lot of it, more to come. We're going to have a Division Institute. It's going to be tons of fun. That's coming later on this month. A lot of our classes are being translated into virtual instructor-led training. And we're doing that type of thing. Regions are offering virtual training. We're offering virtual training to our partners, and as quick as they can turn around, they're turning classes into virtual. So more and more to come. Each of our regions does have a WebEx account, which makes the training a little bit easier, and it's accessible to everybody. So we're really looking at all of those different areas to make sure that our training is accessible to everybody. It's interesting. A few months ago, before all this happened, I would have told you we were doing a pilot in Alaska on virtual instructor-led training, and look at us now. Al, you were involved in some training down in NCCR, right?
Well, we're not necessarily NCCR, but we did. We have a divisional response management team exercise going on today, and initiated today for that matter. But I had the privilege to participate in the NRMT exercise, and we're using pretty much the same scenarios with a couple of additions and blips. But again, it brings up some really great challenges and some opportunities for us to learn a skill set that normally we would not even think about. And that is, as leaders, how do we manage a team virtually? We can talk to them, we can now look at them, etc. But that management style is entirely different than what we would in past years on being on a DR. For me, I know that I would learn so much more about, quote unquote, the pulse of a DR when I'd walk the floor. And I'll walk the floor at the headquarters, or out at a site, or in a shelter or something. Simply walk the floor. I don't even have to talk to anybody, but you hear the pace, the talk, the energy, the feeling, the body languages, etc. We need to find a way to teach ourselves to get that same kind of information virtually. Now, that's a tall order, but I know that we can do that when we truly directly listen to one another and listen to not only the words that are being said, but how they're being said. And that way we can support one another. So back to you, Denise.
Okay, we've got 2 questions left, which is good because I think this thing shuts off right at the top of the hour. So I'm trying to come in under the deadline.
And you've done good. And you've done good staying away from the end button.
Yeah, I know. I keep seeing it. It's terrible. Every time I go to the chat, I get panicky. Do we have a plan in place to house our shelter volunteers in a safe environment? The COVID docs mentioned the possibility of staff sleeping at the client shelter. Additionally, where do volunteers go after their deployment? Are they safe to return home? Great questions, and questions that we're all working to find solutions. First option, we want to put our responders, anybody who's got to deploy to a disaster, in a hotel. This might be the only year you don't have to share a hotel room with somebody, preferably single occupancy wherever possible. If there are no other solutions, we would prefer to open a separate staff shelter, appropriate social distancing, lots of hand washing stations, and isolation wing, all of those things in place. And then one of the things that you'll see in the documents as you read them about deploying is understanding that if you deploy, you could end up in isolation afterwards. That can happen if somebody at your church gets COVID, somebody at your Safeway gets COVID, somebody, at the local park that you were at gets COVID. It can happen in a shelter, and then it would be home isolation for 14 days. We do have great health support. Our nurses are some of the best. We also have disaster mental health for our responders, but that's one of the things. Those are all listed in the hardship codes, and those are going to be in the pre-deployment health screening, is making sure that our folks have a full understanding of what we're asking of them. There's some level where we are going to have to take all the appropriate measures, the cover, distance, cough. They'd be so proud of me for how many times I've said this. But all of those appropriate measures to do whatever we can to protect ourselves. But at some point what we do does involve interaction with the public on a bigger disaster, and we need volunteers to really know what they're getting into, and we need to do everything we can to keep everybody safe. Last question is about when Red Cross's offices will open. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't make any predictions on that. I know that smarter people than I, who understand much bigger implications of every decision they ever make, are making those decisions, and we will all stand by to hear that. It's not a decision we take lightly. So we have just 2 minutes left. I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to do my DRO speech, and then I'm going to hand it to Al. So on every DRO, I stand up in front of a crowd and I say, I want you to do 2 things. I want you to be kind. Actually, I normally say be nice. We've moved it to be kind. I want you to be nice. Be nice to each other. Have a little extra patience right now. Have a little extra caring and concern. This is hard. This is really hard. We've never seen anything like this. And we go down to the basement. We see a CNN report or we hear about something bad, and we go down to our basement, and it's our scared place. And what we have is we have our mission. We have each other. We have a Red Cross family that can help pull us out of that basement. And we have to remember, you don't know where somebody is right now. You don't know what they're dealing with in their own personal life. So please be kind. And the other thing that I always say on every disaster is, let's get to yes. If there is a need, if there is something more we can do, and it won't impact our ability to shelter and to do the parts of our mission that we have to maintain the ability to do, let's see if we can get to yes. If we ask you for volunteers for a mission and you're a little nervous about whether or not you can get them, let's get to yes. We're in this together, and I mean, we're the American Red Cross. There's no greater place to work, volunteer, it doesn't matter. It's the American Red Cross, and our mission is what will carry us through this. Al, over to you for closing comments.
Well, two letters I'll add to it is R&R, and I guess that's usually in the military terms is time off when you rest and recreate. But I want to emphasize that this is harder work than the other. Do the same things you would do, if you can, of course, if you are deployed on a DR and when you're working at home. Get up, walk around, make sure you're resting, make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're eating right. Don't eat all the candy food that's usually sitting on the break table at the DR. It might be the same thing at home, so try to stay away from that as much as you can. But treat yourself well. Again, you heard me say earlier, me first, you second with love. I mean that. I mean, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others really, really well. And this is hard work. It's not going to be easy. But it's also a golden opportunity for us to hone some new skills that we would normally not think of, and to how to get closer to one another by keeping distance. What a great challenge. What a great opportunity. So I thank you all for taking time to talk with us, ask some questions. I hope this wasn't just verbiage we're spewing out here, that I hope that it connects us a little bit closer across 8 time zones. That's pretty impressive. But I thank you. I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you tonight, and everyone take care of yourselves, stay healthy, and remember your main job is to be healthy. Stay healthy, both mentally and physically. Back to you, Denise.
I just want to thank everybody from Guam and Saipan and Tinian and Rhoda. Those are our Marianas Islands, for those of you that don't know, all the way to Montana. Our Idaho and Montana are our 2 newest states, up to Alaska, down to Hawaii, over to American Samoa, California, Washington, Oregon. This is a huge division, and it is a division that cares about people. So thank you for taking the time. If you had a question and it didn't get answered, please reach out to any of the division team. We're always available. And don't forget, CDC. Have a good night. Can I hit the red button now?
Yes, you can. Hit it.
You got it. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
It doesn't work.
All right. Well, I'll take it from there then. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Ian.
Good night.